So I'm going to invite 3 of our next speakers up to the stage. First up, we're going to invite Blake Laufer, who is the founder of MiStall Insights. Pun intended, from what I've just learned. Now, Blake is an entrepreneur with a long history in the parking industry. He started his first company in 1992, building management software for permits and enforcement, and later sold it to T2 Systems. Blake remained at T2 for more than a decade, where he was responsible for product development, led parking research, and data analytics projects. In 2006, Blake was honored by the Canadian Parking Association to receive the prestigious Ed Keat Award for outstanding contribution to the advancement of knowledge in the parking industry. In 2017, Blake returned to his entrepreneurial roots with a new startup company, MiStall Insight, providing parking occupancy detection and analytics, bringing together a variety of hardware, software, and artificial intelligence tools. Put your hands together for Blake. We also have Prush Palanichamy, who's a senior product manager for Eagle Eye Network. Prush is an accomplished product manager at Eagle Eye Networks, the global leader in cloud video surveillance. He has an MBA from the Sauder School of Business in BC and more than 16 years of engineering experience in a broad range of industries, including semiconductor, industrial, telecommunications, and parking. Put your hands together for Prush. And lastly, but not leastly, we have Dani Ierullo, who's the Director of Proposals from Precise ParkLink. In his role as the Director of Proposal Development at Precise ParkLink, Dani plays a key role in interpreting our prospective clients' needs and developing the technology and management solutions that address the challenges that they identify. Under his direction, the team of proposal writers he oversees are charged with developing content strategies that best position Precise ParkLink as a leader in the Canadian parking market. Please put your hands together for Dani.
Bit of setup here. Thanks so much for that. Thanks, Cass. Thanks, Nicole. Cass, wonderful job putting this together today. It's been fantastic so far. A lot of effort goes in. So we're presenting a little bit about camera technology. Started off as curbside analytics, but I thought, there's a lot to do with cameras and a lot of attainable and achievable things that you can do, and it's not much of a stretch to get to it. So titling aside, it's actually a little bit of a talk about the camera technology, but in a practical way. We've done 2 pilot projects, one with the City of Toronto and one with the Greater Toronto Airport Authority. So we want to talk in practicality, what it was we did, how it turned out, what we got out of it, and then lastly, we'll talk a little bit about how you might apply these things in your operations. I need the thing, sorry. Yeah. So Nicole did a wonderful job describing. I don't even know how they came up with a paragraph for me, but that's fine. Our partners, MiStall Inc. and Eagle Eye. So I'd like to just a little bit of an opportunity for them to describe what it is they do, how they provide technology, so you have a little bit of context when we start talking about the case studies. So without further ado, I'll pass it to Prush to talk a bit about Eagle Eye.
Thanks for having me here, Dani. It's fantastic to see the audience. At Eagle Eye, what we do is a cloud-based video management system. There are a lot of bragging details about what we are as a company here, but I would like to talk about what it means to our customers, right? Primarily, what it means is if you have cameras, you probably buy like DVRs and NVRs, and you rack those in your data center. And that's kind of how you store video, right? And if you want to, extract intelligent metadata from that video, you then buy an AI appliance, costly equipment. You again rack it into your data center, and then try to convert that video to data, right? What we do at Eagle Eye is we can modernize the security infrastructure, and what we do is we get all the video to the cloud, and we store more than what YouTube stores today, right? So we have constant stream of video coming at us, and we store all of the data securely in the cloud. And that data that we have it in the cloud is accessible to our customers, our partners via APIs, and we also have a video management system that runs in our data center, but you can access it via a thin client on a web browser. So that's kind of like an overview of what we do here at Eagle Eye Networks. Not here, but in Austin.
Thank you so much, Prush. Blake, over to you.
Thank you, Dani. So MiStall is a company. We're based out of Hamilton, just down the road. We provide a place for you to store all of your occupancy data. So we feel like occupancy data and simply counting cars gives you really good insight into what's going on in your parking operation. It's one of those foundational numbers that you want to build. And we provide a place where you can put all that data. So we will pull in data from camera technology. We have some of our own camera technology. We work with third parties as well. We also bring in data from things like pay by cell phones or pay stations. We bring in data from space sensors. And all of that converts into occupancy data. So we like to use that tagline that you might have heard from another company, "You're richer than you think." We like to take the technology that you've already built or you've already invested in and apply that into occupancy. And so basically we're counting cars and giving you a place to store all that data, and we do some really neat analytics on that to help you understand your demand.
That's excellent. Thanks, guys. So I want to talk a bit about the case studies. So there was 2 projects that we did earlier this year, actually, one with the City of Toronto and one with Toronto Pearson. So the City of Toronto Innovation Zone Challenge, they wanted to figure out ways that they could manage and monitor the curb. So for them, the challenge was a lot about understanding what technologies are out there and ways they can apply it. But they also kind of reversed it on us and said, hey, it's a great way for you to learn about your technology. What are some of the great things about it and some of the things that you can improve on? So it was kind of a nice effort where we each would learn something about it. There was nothing to come of it except a lot of learning. We found it very educational. So they wanted to see what's available in this technology. What kind of software and analytics can I do with it? Beyond just looking at the data and doing correlations and things like that. So that was important to them. The effectiveness, practicality, and of course, like everyone else, what is this thing going to cost me? Is it something that I can achieve and attain? So those are the things that they were looking at. So with, along with MiStall, that honestly, like this presentation, they do most of the heavy lifting. I want Blake to talk a bit about what it was we did at the City of Toronto, what came of it, and what the learnings were. So Blake?
Thank you. So I mentioned we work a little bit with camera technology. So what you're looking at here is a map of Princess Boulevard, which for those who don't know is in kind of downtown Toronto exhibition place area. And it's basically a big, long street. What they wanted to do is they wanted to gather as much information as they could around the, there's exhibition, what do you call it, the exhibition thing?
The Field Center.
Yes, whatever he said. So they hold a lot of events there. It's a huge event center. And so typical of event parking, which you're very used to, is probably feast or famine. When they're holding an event, there's parking problems all over the place. You've got people parking on the street doing loading and unloading. You've got all the lots get filled up. And then there are those times where there are no events happening and it's very quiet. There's hardly anything happening in terms of parking. So what they wanted to do is use our technology to keep track of and determine how much occupancy they were having over different times. So what we did is we put in cameras in 3 different locations. We had this was Dani's favorite because he liked this one particular pole. And so we put 2 cameras on this pole, one aiming kind of down the street left and one kind of aiming down the street right. We had a surface lot where we put 2 cameras in that location as well, and they were aiming into the surface lot to count the cars and measure dwell time. And then we had an unusual area over here, which was on a rooftop, so we put 2 cameras up on the rooftop, and we used some higher definition cameras for those because they had to see a further distance down the street. And so that was kind of the gist of it. The other thing about the cameras that we use, what makes it a little bit unique, is that they are solar powered and cellular. And the reason we do that is because in a lot of cases, you don't have any infrastructure to put your equipment up on a pole. You can't tie into the pole, or you don't have an electrician to tie in power to the pole, or in some cases, the pole doesn't have continuous power. So we use solar panels and cellular. And one of the first things we discovered was, it's hard to see, but this building here,
Hotel X.
Hotel X, thank you, is a very tall building. And since this is north and this is south down here and this is east over here, the sun rises in the east. Well, it rises when we're this far north in Canada. Yeah. The sun rises in the southeast. So the sun rises over here, and this giant building causes shadows over all of our solar panels. I think you know what that result is. So it was very challenging for us to work around the building, but we did manage to keep the equipment running pretty close to 24/7 throughout the winter, which was pretty impressive. So that's kind of the area. And here's an image from each camera. We do grayscale the images as well. We don't do color images for two reasons. One is because of bandwidth. If we do gray color images, it doesn't cost as much on the cell plan. And Dani's always very careful about how much he wants to spend. And then the other is when we're doing AI recognition, we really don't need the color depth for most of these images. It's helpful, but not necessary. So we were able to use the AI with color images. So this is on the first pole that I showed. As you can see, there's a bus, and we basically just monitored the curb lane to see when people were doing pickup, drop-offs, getting in the way of the buses, a lot of that kind of activity. This was the surface lot, one of the two cameras that we saw. I'll talk more about this in a second. And then this was the challenging one from the roof, where we were actually able to see, it's probably hard for you to see, but we can see both sides of the street. So we were able to watch, monitor, and count cars on both sides of the street in the parking aisles. So that was kind of what we did there. This is output from our system. This is a real picture from back in May. So the idea is the cameras we use are not video cameras, I should probably mention. We can use video cameras, but we don't use the video functionality of them. We do time-lapse images. So we just snap a photo every couple of minutes, and we use the photographs for the counting. So you can see this car here, he's been there for 20 minutes. This guy's been 6 hours 49, 7:20, and so forth. So for every car in the picture, we're keeping track of the dwell time and how long they've been there. So if you've got rules that you want to set up, about like the maximum time you can be in an accessible space or something like that, that's the kind of technology that we're doing. And this data is available to you live from the system. Furthermore, you'll see we've got a couple of kind of yellowy, orangey zone areas. So for this particular application, they only wanted to count and focus on the cars that were in this particular area. So we weren't really too interested in what was going on outside of these zones. You can set up different rules on the zones to say, you know, these ones can only be here for so long. The little dot will turn red or turn green depending on different conditions and so forth. So the blue means something, the yellow means something. I won't go into all the details. But the idea here, you have something you want to say?
Well, I was going to say, if I have a 4-hour rule, it'll turn red for me. Like if I want to just visually look at it and say how many people are parked longer than I would like them to.
Yes, absolutely. So you can set up those limits, and then we will tell you, we will send you a text message to your enforcement team, or we'll send you an email that says, yeah, you've got some overtime parkers, go after them. So that was so that's kind of the gist of it. Here's what the AI sees. So people like to see this one because when I say we're counting all the cars in the image, as you can see, we're picking up just about everything with a confidence factor and so forth. There are some areas of the lot we may not be able to see, but the point is we're just focusing on certain stalls. And when it comes to monetizing this, one of the questions you might ask is, well, how do I make money? So clearly you can increase your enforcement. But when we integrate this data with, say, pay stations, we can tell, you know, your pay station has 50 payments in it, but there's 80 cars in the lot. So you've got 30 cars that are not necessarily paying at that time. You can direct your enforcement to a particular area. That's one of several examples of how you can turn this into money. And then if you go one more slide. So this shows, this is the feast or famine that I talked about. So there's some real data that came out of it. So on May 8th of this year, so you can see for that little zone that we were just talking about, you can see the peak occupancy and the average occupancy. So we're calculating those dwell times and so forth to give you an idea of, here's the feast where they were holding events and their lot was busy, and here's the famine where the lots were almost nearly empty all those days. So that's a lost revenue opportunity. The gentleman at the back, the one with the glasses who asked about the demand management earlier, that's the kind of stuff that you would feed into your AI engine to be able to give you things like elasticity of demand and so forth and come up with those pricing, Go ahead.
No, I'm laughing. It's like the man in the back. I felt like it was the fugitive. I'm like the man with the wooden. I can't remember him, but no, I believe you.
Yeah, and so that's the kind of data that you would use to feed into your AI engine and come up with optimal pricing and maximizing your yield and all of those other economic stuff that comes with this.
And this is just one chart of many, I think, right, Blake? There's a number of different ways you can report on the data.
No, we only have one chart in the system. This is it. Yes, we do have quite a fair number of metrics.
We just paid for one chart.
And then I think, Dani, you like this one. I think you
I
put
love this.
Well, then you introduce it.
No, I'm just going to let the picture tell a thousand stories.
So we strung together all of the images for the day into, and this is a feature of our system, but it gives you an idea of, you can watch an entire day's worth of parking in about 15 or 18 seconds.
And last night we stayed up till about 3 in the morning stitching these together one image at a time.
Gluing the pictures together. So,
He's great. He's a wonderful person to hang out with. No, it happens all automatically. And it does a number of different things, I think, right? When you see something like that. Like, talk a bit about a simple tool, but the power of it.
Well, it is a simple tool. I mean, just collecting simple single snapshots of your parking tells an entire story. Mm-hmm. And that's something that most parking operations don't have, or you'd have to send people around to do these manual counts. Yeah. And the cameras, I mean, you just set it and forget it, right? Yeah. The cameras just kind of sit there and count all day. Yeah. And it's super boring, but it turns out to be very valuable data when you start to collect it day after day after day. Yeah. You can look at that and do trending and so forth.
And interesting to see, I think, how even your lot fills up. Where are people parking? Where do they tend to go to first? You'd never see it, and it's a very inexpensive way to stitch something together. The other thing I wanted to touch on a bit is you see the lighting conditions change. And of course, with camera systems, lighting sometimes can become a challenge. I mean, again, we want to talk about the tech, but there's some warts obviously involved too. But there gives you kind of a sense of, was there a washout? Do you get anything out of that when you're assessing the quality of the camera and the lighting of that particular location?
Absolutely. So I mentioned about the shadows and being a challenge, but I don't know if you noticed, we'd probably have to play the video again, but you can see the shadow of that building at the beginning. There it is. That's the building getting in the way.
Hotel X.
And so the conditions the real world conditions are always changing. And we have this data, we ran this for, I think it was 5 months we ran this thing. So we got snow, we got rain, we got, the sun was so low in the sky in some cases that it's shining like right in the lens of the camera. So we repositioned the cameras, we put the little visors on them. Yeah. So it was a great little experiment in terms of a real world activity.
And it just like, this is when we did the advisor meeting. That's Alex McIsaac right there. It was totally by accident I picked this day, but it had a lot of cars, and now I know why.
I don't know if you can see, there's space sensors here as well, so they did some testing with the space sensors, and we integrated that into our system as well. We take EV data, for example. We can tell if your car is EV charging based on communications with the charger, and then we'll use our camera with kind of a true occupancy to say, is there a car in that space that's really charging? Or is it some doofus who's parked his non-EV vehicle in the EV space and then maybe even took like the little charger and stuck it in the gas tank to make it look like they're charging? Yeah, people do that. So yeah, we can detect when that happens, and then you can send your enforcement team out. So.
Right. We'll get to that too. So with the next case study, we'll call it, this was Toronto Pearson Airport. And sorry, I'm 56, I have to look at my notes. What they wanted to do was really analyze what's happening on the curb. Now it's Pearson Airport, you've all been there, you go, well, geez, it's busy. Like, what are you analyzing? Just walk outside your office and you'll see it's a really busy place. But I think it's important to say, well, we're gonna collect data. Like, how many people are coming? How long do they stay? Are there repeat visitors? Are they coming from the garage? What's the correlation to certain other types of activities? So they really wanted to understand not why it's busy. You see it's busy, but what is making it busy? What are the things that are happening there that makes it busy? So you're making data-driven decisions so that when you tweak something, you can see how that affects overall. So working with Prush, Eagle Eye, it was great for us to say, well, let's put a system in place where we can at least start collecting the data and seeing different ways we can work with that data. So with that, normally I would have advanced this slide and done all that. So I just kind of explained what's on here now. So I'm just going to turn it over to Prush to say, hey, what did we do at the airport and how did it turn out?
Yeah, so there are two main things, in my opinion, that was important for Pearson Airport. Right, one is to look at vehicles coming in and going out, and try to understand how long are these vehicles are actually using the curbside, right? So one of the ways we thought about just finding out that dwell time and how people are using, and how they're entering, where exactly they're going, and when exactly are they getting out. So that data, they also wanted to kind of correlate, who's coming in versus, is he a monthly parking customer, or is it like a vendor that is there on our database, and those kind of things, right? So that particular thing we were able to do with LPR, and also not just using LPR, but also who's our partner there. Do you want to talk about that, Dani? How they bought in the database of different set of vehicles, ResoTrack?
Yes, though there was an integration with, so they have a commercial vehicle tracking application at the airport. So they wanted to understand who was coming there, understanding that also that there is limos and taxis and others that are registered to park there. And so that factors into the decision. So you'll see we actually put cameras in several different areas here, and this will probably blow it up a little bit better, but it was understanding the types of people that were using the curb and how much of it is that commercial vehicle traffic that's picking up passengers versus me picking up my brother-in-law who's flying in from Winnipeg. So this kind of shows you a little bit the layout, if you want to talk about how you did the layout and what these cameras are doing.
Yeah, so the layout here basically kind of tells, one is basically reading license plate of vehicles coming into the airport, and the other side you'll see the LPR exit. That's when we are tracking the vehicles that are going out of the airport, right? So we know exactly at what time they came in and exactly what time they went out. And even if we miss one single character of the license plate when they exit, we can do the correlation still, and we can give you the exact dwell time of how long they've been inside the zone, right? But also you'll see a lot of these yellow rectangles. Pearson Airport is one wherein every curb is marked, if you want to go catch a Uber, go to curb number 34, like the pillar number 34, right? So every curb is has this pillar. So what we did is, we leveraged cameras that are there on the pillar itself to kind of find out, how many cars are parked at a pillar and how many people are there at a pillar, and we are able to count that data. Just like I mentioned earlier, we can, any on-whiff profile-less camera, we can connect it onto our VMS in the cloud, and we do a ton of AI on the cloud as well. So we understand the usage of the curb via people and also via the vehicles, right? And we do classification of those vehicles as well. But we are plumbers, right? We get the video, we give it to our partners, but we also get some of the data and we give it to our partners, and they build stuff, amazing stuff for specific application, in this particular case, a parking application, right? So this is an example of things we have done and things we have run into, right? And I get asked this question repeatedly, why do you want to use AI for license plate recognition, right? Can you just scrub the screen and then give me what you read in like a character recognition, right? But we do not just one AI model, we actually do 3 different AI models to do license plate recognition, and we are one of the first ones to use AI to do this. The first stage is basically detecting that vehicle and classifying it. What is it? Is it a car? Is it a person? Or is it an SUV? Or is it a truck? So that level of granularity we can detect. And the next step is, where exactly is the license plate, right? That is another AI model doing that. And then there is another AI model which is doing the OCR really accurately, right? So out of the box, we are able to get 95% accuracy. What you can see is in a pouring snow, we are able to read that license plate of that vehicle as they are traveling through the entry lane at about 60 or 70 kilometers per hour, that kind of a thing. So we're still able to read that. On the left side, what you see is basically the view from the curbside itself, right? These different pillars that you have on the Pearson Airport. You're looking at basically the view of the curbside from that pillar. So we can look at those vehicles, we can look at those people, and then extract metadata, or we can give that data to MiStall, and they can actually give the number of counts of vehicles there as well, right?
And one thing to keep in mind when you think about, people love talking about accuracy, and it's probably one of the biggest questions we get, the accuracy of the camera. The fact is, something that the naked eye couldn't see, we can't expect the camera to see it. So they say, well, cameras are 95% accurate. Well, actually, there's an error rate of maybe 1%, and the rest is like, well, I can't see that. Even, and you can't see, you can come right up to it. You just can't see it. What the human eye can't see, don't expect the camera to see. So suddenly, when you talk about recognition rates, they're actually very, very high. And it's really all about error correction, and something Blake and I talked about earlier is what you do about that operationally to deal with these types of things, because the accuracy is actually quite good. So what we did here is really just the whole concept was to say, well, let's take who's coming, who's going, where are they sticking around, and when they're in this little area for 1, 2, 3, 5 minutes, right? And to talk about things like the analytics. Is what things can we do? Can we tie it to flight information? Can we make it a trip planning tool so that when you're sitting at home deciding you need to pick someone up from the airport, you can actually look at a tool to say, well, when is the best time to go? Or maybe I'll hang out in the cell phone lot for a bit because I know such and such, right? So you're tying it to that type of data. And then there's extracting. It's more than just saying, hey, when did you come in? When did you leave? How long did you stay? There's also statistics, so correlations. The curb usage versus international traffic, the curb usage versus weather conditions. What are the load and unload times? And you can tell from this recognition, you can actually measure how long someone took that was parked there, opened up a trunk, and was trying to load luggage in there. So you could go down to that level if you wanted. A historical and future predictions on terms of the usage. And even for people that this is important to them, you can start measuring and things that you do to reduce emissions, for compliance with other sustainability initiatives, either by the government or within your own organization that you want to achieve. So this allowed us to present all types of data to the airport. And so from simple statistics, monthly passages, just how many cars came in. But you can get down a little bit more granular to it, and you can do average dwell times versus departure. So you can see what is the correlation, and maybe it makes sense to you, but now you have data to support that correlation. Pass-through traffic. So here's a great one, 0 to 1 minute, 3 to 5 minutes, and so on and so forth. How long on average are people staying? You can see it's always busy, but it might be busy with a bunch of 3.5-minute visitors or 2-minute visitors, where you might say, okay, well, that's great. It's a lot of churn. And there's not a lot of, these 10 to 15-minute type people. So there's that type of emission. And then there's the emissions estimate. Again, you can actually correlate how long they were there, estimate how long they were idling, and the types of emissions and the kilograms of CO2 that you may have reduced through initiatives that you put in place. And this one, and what I love, one of the things about Eagle Eye's technology, you can actually categorize the type of vehicle. So it's car, 95%, bus, 3.64%. Prush, can you talk a little bit about identifying, say, a cube van, a bus, and a passenger vehicle, like the way your technology does it?
Yeah, so our models the detection classification is trained over millions of data points of millions of different vehicle types, right? So we look at those vehicles and say, like, this is a car, this is an SUV, this is a bicycle, this is a motorcycle, all of that stuff, right? We have done that for like a traffic monitoring use case for cities as well. In this particular case, for Pearson Airport, what is more important to them was, that classification on the curbside is good, but they also wanted more classification, like in terms of the vehicles that they already have in their database, like these license plates belong to this particular service vehicles, for instance, right? So we are also able to use the LPR to correlate back with the database and say, this particular vehicle is actually a service vehicle. This is scheduled for this particular time of the day to enter the curbside, those kind of things, right? And if not, alert and stuff like that. But this one is straight off the bat from the classification engine, which gives 4 different classification. But if we know different requirements in terms of I want to go a little bit more granular than this. I want to look at a garbage truck, for example, right? We can look at the data and we can train the AI models to get to finer granularity if so needed, right?
So thank you for that. And like I said, in terms of the airport, they actually are interested in if a cube van is going into the departures area, because they might say, well, why would a cube van go into the departures area? Let's alert somebody. Or if there's a large congregation of cars that are there for 5 minutes, Let's dispatch somebody to kind of thin that out because they're causing a traffic. So there's some real reasons behind the types of detection and things that you can do operationally to address any particular issues that may happen. So, I mean, that's two practical applications, things that we've done to say, well, let's try out this technology, but there's obviously stuff that you can do with the technology, and I like to think about it as being, it's actually simple, attainable, achievable, and cost-wise, it's really not that much. You'd be surprised how much you actually have in place, and there's not much more to get it to the next level. So Pearson is a great example. All those zone cameras, they have all kinds of cameras in there, and they just let us take a bit of a feed from that, or even from your cameras. We do one at our parking lot with MiStall, for example. Well, he did charge me for the software, but it cost nothing for the cameras because we had them in place, and he just borrowed the feed from it. I mean, how simple is that, where you can, and then we are extracting all this fantastic data from it. So wanted to talk a little bit about some of the questions that actually came up earlier. So from targeted enforcement, and Prush, I can talk to you about this. I mean, with your system, what is it doing? It's reading plates in and out. So we can actually time, how long a car has been there. And it does that rather effectively. But the nice thing about it is, with that, we know if you're a permit holder or if you've paid for parking, and between that, we can set an alert that says, well, you know what? 15 cars have come in here. None of them made a payment at the pay station, and none of them are registered as a permit holder. So what does that mean? There's 15 cars that need to be looked at because they may be parking and not compliant. So the beautiful thing about that is now we can target enforcement, because you guys have all seen this where it's like, oh, we're going to go and target your lot at 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock, right? And there's no rhyme or reason behind it except that you happen to be available. But now I could say, you know what, out of 30 cars, there's one person parked illegally. I might drop that down on my route. So that's one way to do it. Prush, talk a bit about the LPR as a credential, actually, the next bullet point. Like how often or how effective is it where people can use their license plate to get in and out of a parking lot?
Yeah, before I go there, I want to add another point, Dani, which is, we talk at Eagle Eye, we talk a lot about converting video. That's our world. But we also do a ton of stuff of leveraging AI to extract data from video. So video to data, but then data to intelligence, right? And that data to intelligence cannot be achieved just by video, right? You need integration from other sensors. You need integration to, a CRM system or parking payment system and other things, and that's where we can actually go solve business problems, right? So that's critical. That's one of the reasons we work with our partners to make sure we go solve those business problems with the AI. And the other question, Dani, is
just using your system as for credentialing, so I don't have to hand out cards to people.
Yeah, so before joining Eagle Eye Networks, I was part of a small startup. I was the only person in North America for this company, Uncanny Vision. I come from a semiconductor background, like strong technology background, right? So what we do is, what we did good was basically bring down the cost of AI, right? So for that, we need to use the latest and greatest in the GPU infrastructure. We will go and find okay, Intel has this new tiny IGFX module that can help you accelerate my AI model, and that can bring down the cost rate. So those are some of the continuous innovations we did. So we are looking at standard on-whiff profileless cameras itself, and which has good IR and good WDR, and we are able to leverage just the data from existing cameras, and we are able to add LPR on that, right? So that is a key thing. And like I said, because it is an AI model, which is going through this pipeline of detecting and classifying the vehicle, detecting the license plate again, and then doing LPR, we are seeing an accuracy of 95% off the bat. But then another thing that we have seen is we have thousands of installations in the US where the plates from every state is different, right? You have Florida oranges in one place and you have peaches in Georgia, right? We are able to deal with all of that with AI. But if you take a traditional LPR system, right, that orange is going to look like an O or a Q, right? So we don't do all of that. We train those models with thousands of oranges, so it knows where the orange is, right? So we are very confident that we can use LPR as a credential. So that is the bottom line. And again, if we continuously monitor that is another important thing. what we do by monitoring is we know the confidence of each and every read, right? So if I have a site X, which is giving me like, average confidence of 90%, that's good, right? But if I had taken another site which has an average accuracy of 50%, then I know there is something going on. So I have an example to share, Dani, which is Maryland, which had a character of like A on the top and C on the bottom, right? So that we call as a stacked character, and our system was performing bad. And then we like, geez, the confidence rates of every plate that we get here is just averaging 50%. What do we do about it, right? So we took all of the data. The training of AI is happening offline, right? So we collect all the data, and then we retrain the model, and boom, we get like 95% above, right? That's kind of our SLA. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Blake, can you talk a bit about what site audits? So I have your historical data, and I could look to say, well, there's a bazillion cars here. Do any of your clients use it in that way, where I can just retrospectively look at what happened and how our operation performed?
Oh, absolutely. So the idea is, so all of the pictures from the system are available live. And so we get customers they basically just spy on their parking lots because they don't want to have to take a drive out to the North 40 to go find the thing. And they can just do spot checks to say, does the AI or does the count seem to match what I see in the picture? But then we also keep that data historically as well. So if you're going to go, you can rewind to a previous day and go back a week or a month and look at the pictures. We also store that data for 3 years. So you can look for, say, trending and say, well, does it, at the beginning of the month, do we sell more, or do we occupy more of our spaces at certain times, or what are the trendings that we see over a recurring period, right? Campuses are notorious for this. Is that it's in the summer, it's almost dead for parking, and then September rolls around and all of a sudden it explodes, and then around Thanksgiving, all the students realize that they don't need their cars, and so they go take them back, and then you can kind of rebalance your site. So yeah, those are the kind of auditing things that you can do throughout the year.
Excellent. Yeah, I went to summer school, so I know it's not that busy there. Security, Prush, can you talk a little bit about, your system can do a bit of security too, right? Even speed control. Talk a little bit about that. I told you I was going to put you on the spot.
Yeah, speed control not so much, but security is our pillar of what we do at Eagle Eye Networks also, right? The cameras are meant for improving safety, and security is primarily, right? One of the things that we do offer as part of the VMS subscription itself is, we store all the video to the cloud, but we also extract metadata of what is happening in a specific scene. So if you're a customer looking for, let's say, a Honda vehicle, right? You can just go in and in a natural language, you type in the white Honda car, and you can get to that white Honda car as it was entering in your facility, right? So if you have let's say a dispute, I paid for this parking, and then you go type in at least 2 or 3 characters, then you can fetch in that vehicle. And also the other thing we do is we have a watch list and allow list and a deny list. What that means is if you want to get alerts, for example, if you have a bunch of vehicles that you don't want in your facility, they may be repeat offenders, or they have violated in the past. So you go in our system and say ABC 123, I don't want to see in my facility, right? So when ABC 123 comes again in your facility, you can get an alert and a notification saying, hey, yeah, this is a potential violator, right? So those are ways in which you can use existing camera infrastructure, not just to use parking access and revenue control, but you can also improve your security infrastructure using these things.
Yeah, on top of that, it's the adjudication, right? All of the appeals where people are going to complain, oh, you gave me a ticket, I paid at the meter, et cetera, et cetera. And with the video, this gives you kind of the irrefutable evidence to say, we can go back and say, okay, well, what day was that, and so forth. And then you can look at the video and you can see, well, is that your car there in that particular stall? Yes, it is. And then you can watch, well, you didn't move for 3 hours, even though you said you were only there for 10 minutes. So you get that kind of proof.
Exactly. And going to that video is like a click of a button, we also have, because it's a cloud, we can share that video. You don't have to drive to that location, insert your thumb drive and then scrub through the video, download it into your thumb drive, and then share it to the cops, right? You click button, share, and you get a YouTube kind of a link and then you share it to your customer or your, whoever wants to investigate.
You're more efficient than us because we have to do 3 clicks of a button for that.
The last thing I want to touch on, and Cass has the hook out, so we got to be quick here, is just on the control part. And so this is something that really interested me, where you say you have some locations, Blake, where you're just watching, say, the EV charging stalls for how long they're there, and just kind of an adjunct to that question to say, is there a way to tie, is someone actually plugged in versus someone actually parked there? Like maybe we can do things like that. But you are just monitoring compliance on specialty stalls.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that's a very popular reason for that people want to put cameras in specific spaces or specific areas. We have customers who, for example, you're making an investment in EV spaces. Yeah. They really want to know that those EV spaces are being used. Or if there's a mandate that says you have to have so many accessible spaces in your lot, you want to be able to kind of demonstrate, well, is that the right number? Like, am I overbuilding? If I'm running a medical facility, I may need twice as many accessible spaces. So we give you the data right down to the individual stall to see, here's your utilization, here's your turnover, and so forth. And then you can make those educated business decisions about those resources. So customers who put in EV spaces, EV spaces are expensive. Yeah. Cost a lot of money. And you want to make sure that they get utilized. So by adding a camera or using existing camera technology, it's an easy way to make sure that you're getting your money's worth.
So again, and we'll have questions hopefully in a little bit, but just ways that you can practically apply the technology in your own particular operation, not that expensive, because what you need is just cameras. And if you already have them, well, you know what? You're 80% of the way there. And there's some cost-effective ways to put in cameras, solar powered, they're not that expensive, or LPR, which will do a whole bunch of your in and out lanes. You might say, well, I can get 2 or 3 or 4 great things out of this. So it's a great investment in technology, but it's not a lot that you need to spend hardware-wise, and they're not expensive systems. It's our way of saying that, there's different ways to use it, and you have a lot of the technology in place, and a lot of the hard work has already been done, so you get to take advantage of that. Okay, well, that's great. So my magic trick is I'm going to make the 3 of us disappear, but I thank you very much for your time and your attention. Thank you.